Welcome to Beyond the Battlefield. The battlefield is not always made of noise, conflict, or visible chaos. Sometimes it looks like a boardroom. Sometimes it looks like a founder staring at payroll. Sometimes it looks like a leader smiling on the outside while silently freezing on the inside. Because the hardest battles are rarely fought in public. They are fought within. And today, we enter one of those battlefields. Our guest for this special episode is Kerri Roberts, founder of Salt and Light Advisors, HR strategist, author, entrepreneur, and someone who has spent years helping leaders and business owners navigate what often keeps them awake at night. People, culture, pressure, misalignment, and the weight of hard decisions. From 20 years in corporate HR across industries to building her own firm from a rural farm in Missouri, Kerri brings something deeply needed in today's leadership world. Clarity without jargon, honesty without performance, and a very human understanding of what leadership really costs. Because leadership is not tested when everything is stable. It is tested when the stakes rise, when the mind starts shaking, when self-doubt enters, when outcomes begin to matter too much, and when a leader must decide, do I move forward from fear or from truth? In this conversation, Ankur sits with Kerri to explore exactly that. Self-trust, purpose, pressure, culture, role clarity, decision fatigue, and the inner life of leadership. This is not a conversation about HR. This is a conversation about the human reality of leadership. So wherever you are listening from, take a breath, because this episode may not just help you understand leadership better. It may help you understand your own battlefield. This is Beyond the Battlefield, and here is Ankur with Kerri Roberts.
So if you had gone through our podcast, we keep on saying that the battlefield is never outside. It's always inside your mind. And that's how we keep on opening layer by layer, keep on peeling every layer and try to understand, right? So you have worked with many leaders across different stages and for their growth, right? So when things get really difficult, when decisions carry weight, right? When there is a lot of uncertainty, what do you see happening inside leaders' mind on those moments, right? Whether they are looking inside or they are more outside, how do they decide and what must be happening over there?
I see a couple of different things. One is people get paralyzed. They don't know how to move forward, so they just stop. They aren't decisive. They aren't able to cast a vision any longer. They just kind of go inside of themselves, but not in a retrospective way, more in like a frozen way. Or they push forward without a lot of thought and really not thinking through what the implications might be of pushing forward. So unfortunately, when things get hard, it's a rare occasion to see a leader handle it healthily. In a successful way. A lot of times they either freeze or they push forward, but not with a lot of intentionality.
Okay, but let's say in the moments when they're fully capable, what you say is right? But when they're fully capable, performed in such situation in past, but when the stakes gets higher and higher, right? At that time, I think most of us have seen in our journey so far, right? Suddenly they start feeling overwhelmed, almost frozen, right? So what must be really inside in that moment? As I said you earlier before beginning of our conversation that similar thing we bring into beyond the battlefield, that Arjuna was the warrior and has not lost any war throughout the life. But when the reward came in, which has the highest stake for what he has prepared for 13 years, he decided not to fight, right? So what must be happening at that moment, right? And what they should be, modern leaders should be looking at.
Yeah, I think if a modern leader isn't thinking through their own motives and intentions behind the progress, then they're going to lose the motivation or the inspiration to move forward. But if a modern leader understands why they're doing what they're doing, what the purpose of the organization is, and how they personally attach to that purpose, then it's a lot easier to rally the troops, kind of using that battlefield example to be able to move forward. But if they internally don't have that locus of control, if they don't feel balanced internally, if they don't feel connected to the purpose or the values of the organization, it's much, much harder to find the strength to move forward when stakes get really high.
Yeah, that's right. So, what you said just now, that value of the organization, and don't you think that they are more attached to the outcome rather than what right decision they have to take? Because what I have observed, and that's always create curiosity in my side, and even I will have to decide any point of time. And I'd seen a lot of leaders doing that. They look at the outcome, what is in there for me, rather than what value organization will have or what value my customers or my client will have. So
Yeah.
how to balance that out, right? Because leaders also have their own aspirations, while they also are accountable and responsible for the organization and the team they are leading. How to balance that out?
One of the things that I see, especially at the executive level, is if we are measuring our leaders based off of the bottom line revenue, then that's what's going to drive them. So then they're going to chase the numbers or the metrics instead of their personal values or the company's values. Even at that time, they're going to be trying to meet metrics so they can maximize their own personal performance, their financial performance, or the performance for stakeholders, or whatever that looks like that's beneficial. And so I'm not saying as an organization we shouldn't have metrics and numbers that individuals are accountable for, but based off of what we're measuring, you can kind of tell, like, when something gets hard, where that person's going to focus. And they're likely not going to focus on the people or the culture. They're going to focus on driving the bottom line.
Correct. I think that's what I also agree what you said. When it comes to outcome versus performance, and it's every time what happens is that we keep on chasing what is outcome, right? Let me show those matrices. Let me make those dashboard much cleaner and much better. But what happens is we get attached to those outcomes so much, then we forget that what we are actually there for. I'm here to grow the company, not grow my own dashboard or my own matrices. And that's where, have you seen that if a leader keep on following that for a couple of years or maybe multiple time, do they really able to perform with all the skills they have, or they just focus on those outcomes?
I mean, you can experience financial success, of course, by doing it that way. But the risk is, of course, your own internal, I guess, your compass of what's right and wrong starts to get skewed. But then also the loyalty of the people around you. Your employees start to recognize it doesn't matter how this impacts me, how I feel, whether this is fulfilling work or not. We're just going to chase the numbers, and you're going to eventually scare away the people who are purpose or value driven, and then only bring around you people who are also just focused on the metrics, which becomes a very cold environment.
Yeah, but then in that case, the purpose of the team or purpose of the leader doesn't fit, right? Because the leader is there to drive the organization to the next level, right? He or the team to the next level. But when you say that a leader brings the team also around him, who only drives the numbers and no one looks at the value, no one looks at the customer's real problem, right? Then this is something which, I had seen that a lot of organizations are not growing, they are stagnant, or they are maybe about to crash or fall moving forward, right? But then if we have to differentiate, so we are talking about now two kind of leaders, someone who is more value driven, focused, making sure that organization will drive, my team will grow, and that after that I look at what I'm going to get out of it. And the other leader who is actually stuck into this confusion between outcome versus performance versus value. So how do we differentiate these two kind of leaders, and someone who is not aware that he is actually into confusion? How do they come out of this situation then?
How do they stop being one way or the other? Or how do we measure the success? Or what are we trying to determine between the two?
So I have this question has two part. One is someone who how do we as a leader, for example, as a leader, we have two more leaders in the team, and they are very high stake business driving. Now, someone who is focused on the outcome, he's not worried about what skill he's bringing in, what value he's bringing. He's not developing any team over there. He's okay with whomsoever, just give me the outcome. While someone is thinking very deeply, making sure that organization is should grow. His own performances or his own matrices are okay to keep aside for some time, but let's make sure that customers' outcome is important. Let me solve my client's problem. Let me solve my organization wider goal and contribute into the organization. They're the two leaders. Now, both of them are performing in one way, right? But how do I differentiate that, both of them? And the other part of the question was that if someone who is actually not following value, how do I make him aware that this is not right, and your larger goal is to grow the organization, not growing only yourself?
Yeah, there's a few different ways to differentiate if you're looking at like a human resources perspective, whether that's employee engagement or satisfaction surveys or turnover data when it comes to people exiting that team. So if you are the senior leader over these two leaders that we're talking about, you might have some anecdotal feelings, but relying on data to help you make that decision, whether it's employee satisfaction, engagement, maybe it's productivity in that department, maybe it's sick time, turnover. There's a lot of different metrics that we can look at to try to measure that and then use that data to help drive behavioral change. Because for a person who is very, very focused on hitting the numbers, speaking to them in data is going to be more impactful than saying people don't feel great with you, because feelings are fickle and that's not really going to drive a hard charging leader. And also there's something to be said about where an organization is at the time. Let's say that you are trying to prepare for diligence for sale because you want to be PE backed or you're changing funding source or whatever that looks like. That leader who's driving to the metrics might be the leader that you want at the time, because you're trying to cut cost, you're trying to increase, impact top line revenue, bottom line revenue, because you're getting prepared to sell or cashing in shares or stock or whatever that looks like. So there are seasons where sometimes we do want that colder leader to really dig into the bottom line. But if you're wanting a sustainable organization with longevity, balance, a place that people enjoy working, that is a fulfilling assignment, values driven and all of that. So it's really a hiring thing at the end of the day,
Yeah.
understanding what it is you're looking for and then putting the appropriate person in the role based off of the cycle that the company is in at that time.
Yeah, you're right. So it's like company need maybe both type of leaders, short term and long term, right? Someone who has to fix the current challenges, bring the numbers, make the company profitable, and move forward. There is someone, you also need someone who can think longer. He has a longer vision, driving over there. But something you said just now, that um hiring a right people, right? Now that is another thing which we have seen, that many times there is a not a right fit for a role. How do a organization decide based, let's say we have identified that there's some challenges in the team, organization is not growing, and you work a lot of with the HR part. I understand you have something called HR in a box. Maybe some other time I want to understand more about it. But let's say if if you have to evaluate an organization where something is not right, and mostly it's all about people, and all of them are good because they're hired with the right evaluation and everything, but today for the requirement of the role they are not right fit. Maybe their skills, their inner nature is not fitting to that role, or maybe their interest is not there. Now how do someone has to reframe everything together and bring alignment on the role versus their ability, right? And at that time also you have to take many hard decisions, right? You might have to move people from one role, you might have to take a call to let someone go as well, right? So as a leader, it's again an high stake situation. So my question is that how do I understand that someone is not a right fit? Is there any matrices over there? Because when we talk about in Beyond the Battlefield into Bhagavad Gita, we go inner depth of a human mind, their inner nature. But that is all philosophical. But when I need to apply into real life, how do I understand that this is not right fit, and I need to move to a right role, and bring someone for that role as well?
I think a lot of organizations struggle in this area because they haven't clearly clarified what the goals and objectives for the organization are. Therefore, you don't have clear objectives for every single position, job description, or whatever you want to call it. And then you don't have good success metrics, performance evaluation, however you want to call that. So it starts with organizational clarity on where it is that we're heading. Because if we don't know what our company goals are, then how can we know that this person's going to help us reach those? So it really starts with those company goals and then creating job descriptions based on the tasks that we know that we need to accomplish to meet those goals. So organizations break those down in a number of ways, whether you look at, big rocks and then your smaller tasks, your pebbles, there's a ton of different management books out there laying all of that out. But really those ultimate like 3 to 5 goals for the organization, and then determining what each team member needs to do from a cascading perspective to meet those goals. So if, let's say, the clarity is there, the organization has the goals, they have the objectives, they have a great job description, they've got performance management, which generally I don't see organizations have all of those things. But let's say this company has all of that. It's much easier to say, here's where this person is not working. But in lieu of that, when we don't have that level of clarity, it is much harder to differentiate. It's much harder to say, I have discernment on this and I know exactly where it's not working. So therefore I can give clear feedback on where they're not meeting the objectives. And then I can also give clear touch points or accountability on what I'm going to do as the leader to help them get there. Most leaders want to say, this person doesn't want to work, or this person just doesn't get it. It's on us as the organization to really have that clarity. And most companies don't. So they'd rather just say, let's try again. Let's see if we can pull another card. Let's see if we can find another person who's more well aligned.
Yeah. So let's flip the things, and let's say if I have to retrospect myself, whether I'm a right fit for the current role or not. Now that's one of the difficult things I'd seen, that like you rightly said, I have matrices, I have performance data, I can go and tell my team that this is not right, this is not wrong. But if I will have to decide for myself as a leader that the responsibility what I had been given a couple of months back and the situation I am now, I need to change something in myself, right? How do I realize myself to do that? Let's say if I need to, is there any practice which I need to do, or something which I need to really worry about or take care about, so that I always be alert that I'm changing inside, or I may have to change myself to address some of the situation.
And the journey to self-awareness is one that a lot of people choose not to get on. And that's sad. It's a beautiful journey, but it is lifelong. I've went through so many iterations of myself, whether it's been through my spirituality or through therapy or through tapping or through reading or through plant medicine or whatever it is. There are so many different modalities that we can apply to ourselves to evolve. But think about how many people that don't want to get on that journey, that don't have a desire. It's too hard. It's too dark in there. It's too complicated. They don't feel like they have access or the tools or maybe the money to invest or whatever excuses that people make to not go on that self-actualization journey. Or even the people who are on it, like, it's a hard journey. It's a lifetime worth. And I don't think we arrive, it's this constant process. So there are so many times where a little personal awareness would make it so obvious to a leader that someone else could do a better job with that team, or someone else could succeed more in that organization. But if that individual is financially driven or fear-based or, a number of different things, they're going to hold on with a grip and never let go because they're scared about, not making the money or not having the title or the prestige or whatever their motivating factors are, whether they're healthy or not healthy motivating factors. So that's a tough one, because I have ran into people over and over again in my last 20 years in human resources where I wish a person would have been a little more self-aware. And most of the time, their lack of self-awareness caused their demise in the organization. They had to move on and had to be forced to move on.
Yeah. You're right. I think self-awareness, taking care of changing yourself, not only physically, but also inside, something which it's lacking everywhere. You are on the other part of the world. I am on this side of the world, but I've not seen, I keep on traveling across a different part of the world, and I've seen that you are right. It's a very important thing. Even sometimes in my family, I don't see people follow that. And I'll give a very very good example. Everyone wants to remain fit, right? Everyone subscribe for the gym, subscribe for the yoga studio and many other things, right? They'll go for 2-3 days, maybe resolution for a new year, for a month, and they'll stop going. And that's exactly what has happened with me as well, right? So, and I keep on paying money every year after year, and I don't know that. So what I have learned, and I think you do a lot of spirituality and many other things, that. But I started training my mind that, okay, if one day my mind said, today we are not going gym or we are not doing exercise, what I'll do is tell my mind that let's go to the gym, we'll not do anything. Because the problem is that from bed to gym is the only distance you have. Once you are there, you are done. So that is how even I started training my mind for many other things which I was not comfortable. And that's the self-realization I've also seen. And that's why I brought out that question that it's important that we keep on telling others what we are doing, but it's also important that we tell ourselves that we need to change at time comes, right?
Yes. And if you are a person who is willing to change, if you are a person who's investing in yourself, to those people who aren't, they're probably not going to love being around you because you're going to make them feel bad about themselves. You're not trying to, but just your very presence, holding yourself accountable, pushing yourself, learning, challenging yourself, that is unfortunately more unique than not. And so when you're around a person who's unwilling, and you're a person who is pushing yourself and challenging yourself, there's going to be some discomfort there. And so even if you are on the journey, you have to be willing to do the hard thing and go against the grain and be a person that other people don't agree with. And so it's just a challenge on either side, whether you've got inertia or you're the person who's pushing yourself. There are emotional challenges on both sides of those.
Yeah. And then if you have to push someone, so let's say I know that someone is capable, but he's not moving, right? And if I need to push someone, what are those, I would say, stages through which they have to move, or how do I, let's say, I'll take another example. I have 4 people in my team, different skill, different experience, right? And if I have to lead all 4 of them, one is very senior, maybe senior than what I am today, and someone is very just entrance into the team, into the experience, and someone is very experienced but is very lethargic, he's not moving. So how do a leader decide and treat every member? Because you can't treat everyone with the same trick, right? That's where the challenge I'd seen, that people start treating everyone as the same way, and that's where we fail. So have you seen something with your experience with other organization and any best practices which people can follow?
Yeah, one of the best things that a leader can do is just set really clear expectations with everyone frequently. So many times we're afraid of holding an employee accountable because at the root of it, we know that we've never really been clear with them. We've never really said, here's exactly what I need you to do in this timeline at this level of excellence. And if you don't, I'm going to say something to you about it. Because maybe some people do set the expectation, but then they miss the accountability piece, or they never set the expectation. Or even worse, as a leader, we don't hold ourselves accountable. So then we really struggle to hold our team accountable. So there's a lot of different facets to team productivity. But yes, treating everyone the same doesn't really work because everyone's motivated by different things. But the reality of it is we can't truly motivate another person. We can inspire, we can encourage, we can be their cheerleader, we can be the person who says the hard thing to them that no one else does. So anytime that we're trying to lead everyone the exact same way, we're just not going to see the same results. And so that's our responsibility as a leader. And I think so many times we want the employees to be us and have the same level of ownership that we do as a leader. And the reality of that is they're just not going to. That's just not their role. That's not the role they're playing. They didn't start the company, but they can really, really care as long as we explain the why behind what we're doing and the rewards that they'll get if they participate. But not everybody is financially driven. Most of us in the marketplace are, but not everyone is.
Yeah. So I'll just go back to the first question I had, and I'll just give a brief from where I'm coming to. So in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the warrior who has trained himself for 13 years for a war, he has not lost a single war, right? But all of a sudden he decided not to fight, and he started giving different excuses, right? And in turn he is actually started doubting himself, because the stakes were very high, and the stakes were he has to fight with his kin, his family, his relatives. This is a very extreme example, someone who has, right? But we have seen in a current corporate or in any small business as well, for a smaller decision as well, when stakes keep on increasing, why do you think that even experienced leader suddenly start doubting themselves?
I mean, gosh, that could be a number of different things. It could be a childhood thing that we haven't addressed. It could be just a poor experience in the workplace. It can be a shift in priorities as well. Believing in ourselves usually has a negative connotation, but sometimes we decide that the fight isn't worth it, or that this isn't our priority in life anymore, or that, we're tired and we don't want to give this level of effort, or maybe this has gotten unhealthy for us, even though the workplace itself isn't the problem. We're the one who has changed. And so there's a lot of different reasons why someone's perspective might change. But as far as not believing in yourself, usually it's because you're not experiencing self-trust, which means you're likely not honoring the commitments that you're making to yourself. I do a lot of public speaking, and one of the topics I speak on often is trust. And people want to talk about how to get other people to trust you, or how you can build trust with others. But I won't talk about trust unless I'm talking about self-trust first. Because let's say, for example, like you were talking about going to the gym. Let's say that you tell yourself, this week I'm going to the gym every other day. And then that week goes by and you went one time. Your confidence in other areas of your life is going to start to diminish because you're not honoring the commitments that you make to yourself. Or you set your alarm clock for 30 minutes earlier because this week you're going to get up and, start your day in a different way. And then you hit snooze and you don't get up. And even though we like to isolate it and say, oh, I just didn't do that, I just didn't get up early, what ends up happening is that bleeds into other areas. So if we're being unfaithful to our spouse, if we're not managing our finances well, if we're not feeding and fueling our body well, we're not working out, all of these things negatively impact our self-trust. So then when we're faced with a big challenge, somewhere inside, or probably inside of here, we're saying, I'll quit when it gets hard. I don't believe in myself. And most people don't draw that correlation, that it's a self-trust issue. And then it's those tiny stackable habits that we're breaking to ourselves that cause us to kind of crumble when something gets difficult professionally.
So Kerri, what exactly from this moment the real teaching of Bhagavad Gita starts, and in Beyond the Battlefield, why I'm saying that it will take a lot of time, maybe 2-3 years for me, and that's where we try to bring out that inner self should get ready without any baggage in the mind and go and fight. So many times we take decisions, but with a lot of baggage, a lot of fear of consequence into the mind, right? But this is the profound knowledge, wisdom help us to stay light, right? Like you said that I'll not fight, or I'll not take. Sometimes people said I'll renounce, I'll leave this side, right? So here what we are saying, guys, you don't have to renounce. You have to be there. You have to live in this world. You have to enjoy what you have, right? And what you want. You have a lot of desires. You go ahead with that, but still you decide. You fight. You move ahead, right? So what even I had seen what you said is right, that it's not fear of making decision. Actually, it's the fear of what the decision will lead us to.
Yes, that's
Right.
very true. And maybe the fear of failure, the fear of exposing, the fear of our vulnerability, there's a lot of different things that hold us back. But the confidence that we grow in on the other side when we do it anyway, we do it scared, we do it nervous, we do it anxious, we do it feeling like we're not the best person for the job, whatever it is, when we go through it, and we build that confidence muscle, then you can't stop us from doing the hard thing next time, because we're like, I can do that. But so many people stop right before it gets good.
Yeah. Even I'd seen stage fear. It's
Mm.
nothing there, right? But you can speak, you and me can speak for hours together. But if there are 100 people on the stage and I need to deliver same talk, even though I've delivered 100 times, I'm still, even and I've done all the preparation. Who is this listener? What is the topic? In which city we are? How do I start? How do we close? But still, I'd been to this many times in my personal and professional life, and that's where I learned that it's not about fear. It's about, it's not about gaining. It's about living what you have. Like you said, someone has not done something right in childhood or carrying memories from somewhere else. And you just leave that and stay what you are, right? So I keep on saying that it's not about what is right or wrong. It's about what is right now.
Yeah.
Just look at it. but then I had also seen that people decide or leader decide, but I've seen the leader delay the decisions, right? So what should be, why they avoid that discomfort of decision?
I think a lot of people feel like they have to know all of it before they can get started, especially, let's say, someone who is a little more conscious. There are people who will just go into things unprepared, and they should be a little more cautious. But the individuals who are prepared, but yet they hold themselves back, they might feel like there's one more piece of information they should obtain, or one more thing they should read, or one more person they should survey to get the right answer as to your ability to back your decisions up as a leader. If I make a decision, I have no problem saying later, okay, I went in that and maybe it was a little premature. Maybe I should have learned a little bit more. I would rather do that and admit my mistakes after than not do it at all. But there are so many people who will hold themselves back, delay the decision, not make the decision for fear of doing it imperfectly, but we're all doing it imperfectly. No one's playing with all of the information. None of us are.
The conversation getting more and more interesting. But so I'll have one more question for you. So as a leader, what does it really mean for me to stay fully responsible, but not emotionally overwhelmed by outcomes, right? Right. So I'm accountable, I'm responsible, but the outcome doesn't belong to me. We keep on seeing over there and beyond the battlefield. But so what it takes, how a leader should look at still responsible, but outcome is not for me.
I think a leader who has a robust life outside of work has a lot easier time keeping themselves balanced inside of work. So I work out, I've got a husband, I've got a son, I've got dogs, I've got, I cook, and I've got all of these things that I do. I like to hike. And so I have got this life outside of my work. So if everything's not going perfectly inside of my work, it's okay because I have other things going for me. And I think there has been a time in my life when I worked in corporate. I was a chief operating officer in the insurance industry, and I put too much of my identity into my work at that time, and I got very out of balance. So if things weren't going well at work, nothing was going well. My life was just a ball of stress. I just couldn't handle it. And what I learned was when you go all in, and maybe it's out of a good intention because you want to do your best, you want to be the best. But if you get to where your entire identity is wrapped up in your professional life, you're going to get upside down because it's not always going to go well, whether it's internal or external constraints, whether it's a team member or lack of funding or something externally, economically, politically, geopolitically, whatever that looks like, we are not in control. And I think it's a lie we tell ourselves as leaders that we are in control of everything, and we're not. And so if we can let that go, if we've got good balance inside and outside of work, then it's easier to say, that was a tough day, but they won't all be like that.
I keep on telling that I don't need to become Kerri or you don't need to become Ankur. I need to become a good Ankur or better Ankur day by day. And we play multiple roles. Like you said that we have family, right? So when I'm at the home, I have a different role. When I'm at work, I have a different role. When I'm with my friends, I have a different role. And that those roles keep on changing. And something I'll like to sum up, and then maybe you can put your final comments. But what you said is very interesting and very profound, because someone like we were discussing, how do I push someone? So in this conversation, when the conversation start, Krishna, who is the leader, he guides Arjun that you just go and fight. Don't worry about the outcome. Leave the outcome aside as of now. Just go and fight, because he's not moving at all. He's put his weapons down, right? Now, after some time, in a chapter 3 comes, he said that you have to fight, but not for yourself, for the benefit of the society, because to whom you are fighting, they are not their will. So you have to eliminate them, right? Now, when the story moves further, conversation moves further, when 5th chapter comes, he says that you have to fight, but you have to act. You have to act for the purification of yourself. There's no one who is there, right? And the question come up, someone put a question when I was learning that along with me. He said that it's only purification of myself. Why investing, maybe 1 month or maybe 3-4 chapters? You should have told that you have to purification. So one thing you said, that people are not ready many point of time, right, to accept that, because he's not moving at all. You are asking him to purify your inner mind. He's not moving. He's not acting at all. He's just lethargic, right? So that's how I'd seen that a leader should not be talking from that level. He has to come to the level where your team is, right? That's what now you validated that's how it works, right?
Yeah, when we think we are reigning on high, we put a pressure on ourselves that is unrealistic. And then we're also asking for scrutiny from our team because we are going to fail. And so we're putting ourselves in an impossible situation.
Yeah, perfect. So it was a very nice conversation with you, Kerri. Our listener for your platform and my platform will definitely going to get more out of it, and maybe I'll be open to have more conversation like that, because this is going to be a very long journey for me. This book is not only about leadership. There are many things: personal, professional, family, kids, parenting. Multiple things can come out. It doesn't make you corporate leader. It makes you a good leader for a lifetime, or maybe multiple lives coming in. So thanks for joining us on Beyond the Battlefield this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
And in the end, nothing outside really changed. The pressure was still there. The decisions were still heavy. The uncertainty still real. But something within shifted. Because the strongest leaders are not the ones who control every outcome. They are the ones who learn to stand steady, even when they don't. They don't run from the battle. They don't freeze in it. They step into it with awareness. And that changes everything. Kerri reminded us today that leadership is not just about strategy, metrics, or decisions. It is about self-trust. It is about clarity. And most importantly, it is about the courage to face yourself. Because that is the only battlefield you cannot escape. A heartfelt thank you to Kerri for this honest, grounding, and deeply human conversation. So the next time you feel the weight, the doubt, the hesitation, don't look for certainty outside. Close your eyes, breathe, and ask yourself, what is true right now? Because that answer is where your leadership begins. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who is facing their own battlefield today. Follow Beyond the Battlefield. Write to us at beyondthebattlefield@outlook.in and explore our GPT companion link in the description. Until next time, don't wait for the battle to end. Become the leader who can stand within it.